All right, guys, let's talk about identifying your personas. And I want to tell you how this sort of came about for me to understand what it was that I was trying to do. When I was younger, I was in high school, I worked at a car audio shop and I installed car stereos. And one day, the sales manager and I were standing up front in the showroom, and one of our reps came in, and he was a juggler. And he actually did a couple of magic tricks for us just because he dabbled in some magic. And we were totally floored by it. We thought it was the coolest stuff we'd ever seen. And we said, look, man, we're not going to buy any product from you today unless you show us how those tricks worked, because that was awesome. We want to know about it. And we did some arm twisting and probably blackmail is probably what it really was. Ultimately, he showed us a trick and got an order. And I was hooked on magic for really the rest of my life at this point. I was down at what was sort of the makeshift magic shop. It was kind of a tourist shop with costumes and all sorts of different things, and they had a few magic tricks there. I was down there the next day, bought a whole bunch of stuff. Within a couple of months, the owner told me, look, I can't support your habit. This is getting ridiculous. And what was interesting is I wasn't in love with doing magic. I didn't care about performing the tricks. I was in love with understanding them, the mechanical nature of them, and how one thing connected to the next. And because of that, I was perfectly happy with where I was. But I remember one day we had another one of our sales reps come up, and this was the sales rep that always took us out to dinner, and we were a pretty good size account for him, so he really treated us right. And we were out for dinner, and I had showed the sales manager a trick earlier that day that I had been working on. And he says, show Dave the trick. And Dave was somebody who was like the sales guy, right? Like you knew if he was going to open his mouth and start talking, that you were going to get influenced to do something in some way, shape, or form. And he was just so smooth and so good at it. And I don't mean it in a negative context at all. He was really fun to be around and just a really great communicator. He understood the sales game, and I didn't at the time. It wasn't anything I aspired to be. However, I admired his ability to do it. And I went and showed him the trick. And, me being a younger kid, I looked up to him in a certain way, wanted his approval at the very least. And he looks at me and he goes, man, he's like, I see you did the trick and, it's a good trick. It fooled me and whatnot. But he's like, you suck at presenting this. Like, how on earth are you ever going to do this magic stuff if you can't, like bring some life to it? Like, why so dull? What's the deal, And I didn't know what he meant. I was just a quiet kid. I didn't, this sort of intellectual thinking about it that I have, over 2 decades later, I wasn't going to have that level of processing at that point in my life. So I just thought, whatever, that's not my gig. It's not who I am. And because he told me that, something in me took that like a challenge. And I am the type of person where if I accept a challenge, it's done. It's over. Like I will absolutely crush it. And that is something that is a little bit inherent in me. I have a real drive for that, maybe beyond what some other people might have. And certainly other people have it more than me. But nonetheless, I took that as some kind of a challenge. And I had to realize, what was it going to take for me to get there? Like I didn't have these performing skills. I know that I could just go fumble my way through it and hope that people liked it if I was going to do it. And I spent a good long time being pulled into these situations where I was performing, and I knew that I wasn't doing it as good as the people that I loved to learn magic from. And I looked at those people and went, man, they're doing it at such a different level. Like, what's the difference? And I started asking the questions to really define what that difference was. And the difference comes down to a few things. It comes down to the type of tonality they use in their voice. So not just the words they say, but the way they say those words. And more specifically, the words they say, the way they say them, and also the tempo at how they move through the presentation, right? There is a tempo to everything, and it's sort of a feeling space. It's not necessarily something you would document or tempo like music has, but it's a feel that moves you through the entire thing, kind of a groove that people communicate through. And then, of course, it was their body language. And I went, without any one of those pieces, this performance falls apart. So I kind of reverse engineered it just in a way to understand what I needed to do in order to get better at this. And what I ultimately started doing was looking to these different people, and I started really picking apart their performances. Now, There's no magic to what I just said there. That's going to seem like an obvious thing that you're going to have to do if you're going to get good at these presenting things like I'm talking about, good at presenting things like I'm talking about. There is a deeper magic to this that I'll share with you in the next video, but in terms of identifying your personas, what you want to do is you want to look to the people who you think are absolutely rock stars in the space that you want to be in. So if it's a health and fitness person, somebody that you look up to that communicates really well in that fashion. If it's if you're getting into politics or debate, maybe you want to look at somebody that communicates really well from that standpoint. You very likely are going to have some quote unquote heroes that you're aware of in anything that you're interested in. So maybe it's your favorite skateboarder and how they talk on camera, or maybe it's your favorite sales and marketing person or author. Any of those sort of people that you look up to and you go, man, they communicate at such a beautiful way. It connects with me and it helps me understand things at a deeper level. Those are the people that you want to go make a list with, right? So you're just going to go put together a list. I'll take you over to my computer in just a second and I'll show you kind of a quick way that you can research that and find those things, and I'll give you some examples of some of the people that I followed early on, both in magic and in internet marketing, that I used this or deployed this method with, rather. But that's really all you want to do to identify your persona is look to those people that you look up to and just put their name down so you know who they are and why you ultimately like them, right? Like they communicate so well, they connect with me, I learn better from them than anybody else. What it is that you admire about that person, just sort of taking an inventory of that is going to be very helpful when we move into the next phase of this. So let's go ahead and kick over to the computer. I'll show you a couple of things there and we'll wrap up the video after that.